Chair, you may begin.
Hi there, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to day 2, session 2 of Research Week. I take it everyone can hear me. Okay. So today we'll be looking at the DVC Research Innovation Support Unit, and we have a guest from the NRF, Mr. Motloi, that's joining us. And so we will be going through the library, the Division for Postgraduate Studies, the Tech Transfer Office, Dr. T Sokupa from the DVC's Division Special Projects. And after that, we will then move on to Mr. Motloi, who will be doing a presentation for us. So I think we can get started on the first speaker. So the first up we have from the library, Dr. Shalene Neerputh. Okay, Dr. Shalene Neerputh is Director for Library Services at the University of the Western Cape. Her career spans 30 years of higher education, professional library experiences. She envisions the repositioning of the role of the academic libraries towards strategic alliances that are responsive and connected to quality teaching, learning, and research in a digital university. She's currently the chairperson of the Committee of Higher Education Libraries, South Africa, as well as the former chairperson of the Library and Information Science for National Education Interest Group, a board member of LIASA, a professional board, as well as the council member of the South African Society for the Blind. Shalene's passion lies in leading and enriching the university library with embedded librarianship principles responsive to the rapid disruption and transformation in a global pandemic of our time. So over to you, Dr. Neerputh.
Thank you, Chair. It was lots of things that you do normally, but thank you so much for the introduction. Very warm greetings, colleagues, and I am so confident that you are really enjoying the Research Week 2022 presentations and learning so much more. This is really a special week for both the research as well as for the library, in the sense that it is an open access week for libraries across the whole globe. And so the theme of open access is open for climate change, which coincides with the theme of the Research Week 2022. Alfred, do you want to share the slides? Thanks. So colleagues, it is my pleasure to bring to you, my topic is International Federation of Library Associations 2035 Call to Action for Climate Change, and how UWC library goals link to the SDGs. So my topic is in keeping with the DVC Research and Innovation theme for Research Week and her strategic intent. Next slide. I will be sharing the presentation with my Deputy Director, Research and Scholarly Communications, Mr. Alfred Nqotole. So we have two parts to the session. I also have a little video that I would love for everybody to see. It is really an inspirational video, so I'm going to be sharing it in this presentation. Colleagues, the first critical thing is that we are in Research Week all because we have empowered through knowledge, and it is the library which is at the nexus of the university's knowledge creation. And so our theme is library services as an enabler to academic and research success. And in line with the DVC's strategic intent, I would also like to say, how is the UWC library empowering for knowledge, and what action are we taking to forward the DVC's research strategic and key focus around the SDGs? So enabling for research success and contributing to the SDGs development agenda. So the SDGs development priorities listed here, and you all have are experiencing a huge component of the SDGs presentations and learning from it in this week. So the SDG development agenda, the 17 priorities, and how is the library a contributor? Alfred and I will highlight this in our presentation today. So I also want to highlight we are a university of hope to action to knowledge. So it is critical that the library stands at the center of this knowledge creation. And I do want to say that UWC Library is a valued member of the IFLA, International Federation of Library Association and Institutions, and to which effect I would also, I'm also screening a short video around the opening address of the 2022 IFLA presentation at the World Congress. So IFLA is looking towards developing the SDGs Sustainable Development Goals. And as you can see from our slides, the libraries has been at the forefront of development for a long time. But traditionally, we've been advocating for development in society, and now the UN 2030 SDG agenda requires of libraries and academic libraries to provoke this agenda. So how does UWC respond to the call for action? Next slide. Colleagues, I would like to share with you a very inspirational video from Mary Robinson, and her opening address outlines libraries' call to action, which is what the DVC Research and Innovation strategic intent is, and the focus of UWC research and making a difference for climate justice. I would also, okay, Alfred, I think we can't hear the sound. I know you'll be inspired by the short video, and I do urge you to listen carefully to the end on how Prof. Robinson brings in UWC's motto, from hope to action. Do enjoy. I think we need some...
Dr. Neerputh?
Yes.
Just for the sound, if we can just stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
And then Alfred needs to share screen again. But before you double click on the presentation, in the bottom left-hand side, there's a little box that says sound. You must just tick that box off and then double click on the presentation.
Repeat that. Should I share again?
Yes, share screen. And then before you double click on the presentation in the dialog box, right at the bottom on your left-hand side, you click the sound button and then you double click on your presentation, sir.
Is that the volume?
Yes. No, in the dialog box of the share screen. Okay. The bottom left-hand side has a sound audio box.
Sorry, I'm not good at this. Can I try and share there?
Mm-hmm.
Bottom left.
Before you double clicked on the presentation, in that big dialog box, there was a small little box in your left-hand side that says sound and audio. So you actually need to close this again, sir.
Okay, colleagues, I'm sorry about this.
No problem. So when you click share screen, the dialog box will open up, and in your bottom left side, there's a small box that says share sound. So you must just click in that, and then you double click on your presentation.
2022
There we go. Thank you.
on the challenge of climate change, the challenge of the climate crisis, rather. I also want to extend my own warm Céad Míle Fáilte. It was great to see the flash.
Did something happen to the sound?
Flash mob yesterday in Front Square of Trinity College, and the reading of Ulysses in different languages. And we really like visitors like you. Welcome, welcome, 100,000 welcomes. I intend to challenge you because we're in a world of different crises, the worst of which is the climate crisis. But first, I want to evoke the spirit and personality of a dear friend who encouraged me to love libraries, Vartan Gregorian, who sadly passed away last year. Vartan had, of course, revived the New York Public Library, and as head of the Carnegie Foundation, he supported libraries around the world, following the example of Andrew Carnegie, with whom he identified very closely. Vartan also supported the Trinity College Library, and one of his last public events was a great conversation with its librarian, Helen Shenton. I often heard him speak of libraries as gateways to knowledge and culture. He would explain that the resources and services they offer create opportunities for learning, as the Armenian Church's library in Iran did for him as a 12-year-old boy. There's a particular phrase of Vartan's I love. Generosity has no expiry date. I'm glad to salute Vartan again on this special occasion. In preparing to challenge you all, I Googled the role of libraries in the 21st century. I liked this answer. The libraries of the 21st century provide a welcoming common space that encourages exploration, creation, and collaboration between students, teachers, and a broader community. They bring together the best of the physical and digital to create learning hubs. It was encouraging, in fact, to see that the evolving role of libraries and librarians in the 21st century is quite a hot topic, as it should be. And that's why I want to challenge you. Last week, at a climate conference in Berlin, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN, warned, half of humanity is in the danger zone, from floods, droughts, extreme storms, and wildfire. No nation is immune, yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction. We have a choice, collective action or collective suicide. It is in our hands. I'll come back to this question of choice, as I assume naturally that librarians are on the side of collective action. First, I want to emphasize that the climate crisis has not happened any other way. It is human-induced. And within that, there are serious injustices. I've identified at least 5 layers of injustice. Firstly, the injustice that the climate crisis has hit both earlier and more ferociously the poorest countries, the poorest communities, the small island states, the indigenous peoples. And of course, they are largely the black and brown and indigenous people of our world. So it's also a racial injustice. Secondly, within that, the gender injustice. Women have different social roles, have less power, sometimes have less rights, like land rights, and yet have to put food on the table, go further in drought for water, make their communities resilient. So the gender injustice. Thirdly, the intergenerational injustice. And thankfully, young climate activists have been calling us out on this, emphasizing the burden that they're going to have because we're not fulfilling our responsibility. They can't they're not in power, and they're calling on us to address this intergenerational injustice. Fourthly, very subtle but important injustice, the injustice of the different pathways to development of different regions of the world. Industrialized countries, we built our economies on fossil fuel. Our responsibility is to be grateful to the workers in coal and oil and gas, and in this country, peat, turf, who helped us to become modern, industrialized countries, and to make sure that we have a just transition away from fossil fuel as quickly as possible, but not leaving behind the communities and the workers who helped us to build our economies. That's the importance of the just transition. But what about developing countries? I remember, because I was the special envoy at the Secretary General before the Paris Climate Agreement, the way that so many developing countries in their nationally determined contributions said they wanted to go as green as possible, as quickly as possible, with clean energy. But we didn't help with the investment, with the transfer of technology, with the skills, with the possibilities for developing countries to go green more quickly. And therefore, they're caught in these many crises at the moment, the COVID crisis, the debt crisis, and the fact that they have suffered for much longer than the Northern Hemisphere from the climate crisis. And the fifth injustice is the injustice to nature herself, the terrible loss of biodiversity, the extinction of species, the reports that are coming out that we are not addressing, the fact that we are turning nature into possibly an enemy, nature being our greatest friend, the forest being the sinks, the ocean being a huge sink, and yet we are destroying their capacity to help us in our own survival. So I think being aware of the injustices encourages what I call a climate justice approach and strengthens the moral case for collective action. Climate scientists worldwide, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, have warned of how perilous the situation now is. We have to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030 and reach zero carbon by 2050. At present, we're on course for a 2.7 degrees Celsius warming above pre-industrial standards, which would be catastrophic. 2030 is 7 years away next January. The time for gradual, incremental change is gone. We need to step up totally. I'm involved with various networks of women leaders and young people, young climate activists, in planning with an urgent moonshot mentality to build a climate justice movement for transformative action on climate. Now, here's my challenge to you all. I know many of you are already taking some action, but we all need to step up tenfold. What are the ways librarians can rise to the challenge and be part of the collective action that the Secretary General was calling for to secure a sustainable future for people and planet? Interestingly, a leading climate scientist, Katharine Hayhoe, has identified a key problem. We don't talk about the climate crisis. We don't talk about it in our homes. We don't talk about it in our communities. We don't talk about it in our workplaces. We don't talk about it with our colleagues. In her book, Saving Us, she puts it this way: I'm convinced that the single most important thing that anyone, not just me, but literally anyone, can do to bring people together is, ironically, the very thing we fear most. Talk about it. Why are people not talking about something that matters to them so much? And actually, her book, Saving Us, is a very good example of how to have that conversation, because Katharine Hayhoe, who's Canadian, is based in Texas, in a university in Texas. I call it an oxymoron, I think, to be a Canadian based in Texas. But anyway, she does it very deliberately because she's talking to those who tend to be the deniers, who tend to not want to talk about it. And she has found the way to do it. And her book, Saving Us, is a great example of how to open up that conversation. So this is my challenge to libraries and librarians. Help us to encourage people to talk to each other more and more about the climate crisis. Your theme for this year seems perfect for this. Inspire, engage, enable, and connect. You know better than me how proactive you can be. How can you create an enabling environment to start this vital conversation? How can you inspire young people to be innovative? How can you use knowledge to motivate people? How can you encourage collective action for change? I'm very aware, as chair of the elders, that I fill quite heavy shoes. The first chair was my beloved friend, Archbishop Tutu, who died on Christmas Eve last year. And he was a wonderful voice for truth and hope. We have to bring hope into our world on this. I often tell the story of being with Arch, as he encouraged us to call him, at a conference in New York of young people called the Social Good Conference. They were all on their iPads and their phones, and this was about 15 years ago. And we were being moderated by an American journalist. And of course, when Arch gets in front of young people, he would throw up his arms, tell them how much he loved them, believed in them. And the moderator said quite sharply, "Archbishop Tutu, why are you such an optimist?" And he looked at her and he shook his head and he said, "Oh no, I'm not an optimist. I'm a prisoner of hope." In many ways, we all have to be now prisoners of hope in this very difficult world we find ourselves in, because hope brings energy. If you talk about the climate crisis in a way that is possible to do, as in a sense part of what the Secretary General was saying was how serious it is. Are we going to choose collective suicide, he even said. We can make it very negative, or we can choose to be prisoners of hope and find the energy to be resilient. The word resilience has been used quite a bit. And that is, I think, what we really need, to work together and to do the impossible. The task may seem impossible, but it will work if every sector of society steps up in this way. And as chair of the elders, I'd like to conclude with a succinct phrase of our founder, Nelson Mandela. "It always seems impossible until it is done." It always seems impossible until it is done. Guramila Mahagiv. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Colleagues, wow, I know that you would have been inspired and really enjoyed that video. I know that each and every one of us need to stay connected, engaged, and inspired, and become. Colleagues, okay, we're back. So I'm saying that I was definitely inspired by that video and taking collective action. So the big takeaways was libraries serving as gateways for knowledge and being the nexus in the university as the intellectual hub, and in the creating the intellectual capacity in the university. And then the other critical one I did take away was generosity has no expiry date. And so in keeping with all of her, eloquent address, the libraries of the 21st century, how are we evolving and revolving in our role to look at our impact into SDGs? Our part is enabling research for making a visible impact in society, for looking at promoting climate justice and research focus in UWC. And therein lies the value of the library in becoming a strategic partner and opening the engagements towards dialogue. Next slide. So colleagues, our vision in the library is very clear. And in light of our vision, our mission, I also would like to draw your attention to the fact that the library is an embedded strategic partner for academia in being relevant and responding to the call for the Sustainable Development Goals To this effect, Missingham 2021 states, it situates university libraries within a paradigm that understands their role in knowledge and information infrastructures which enable student success and research success. So definitely the UWC library is moving from being the traditional research and collection-based services to becoming involved in sustainable, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I did allude to IFLA's call for climate change and how libraries can make a visible and impact in that. Colleagues, also an important note here is the fact that this research week is also about connectedness and how do we as a collective take action to forward climate change and the SDGs. So library goals and how they link to the SDGs. Alfred, you can click. So we do, as a library, advance open access and to build the knowledge society. And in looking at advancing open access, and we as libraries throughout the world are celebrating Open Access Week, I alluded to the fact that the theme for open access is open for climate change, which is in keeping with this presentation. And also looking at quality information resources that enables quality research. And to this effect, I can tell you that the libraries are engaging in, and UWC libraries engaged in transformative deals, which look at lowering the cost of flipping the journal publishing issues so that research becomes open, and we engage in open access research so that it has an impact and for all of society. And also looking at quality in education. So the whole notion of libraries is around playing a critical educative role, both in the university and in society. One of the critical areas in which we as librarians assist with is upskilling and professionalizing of staff, and that means both for librarians as well as our academic and our research partners, and also looking at fostering strong partnership with the DVC line and with the faculty to promote SDGs in light of promoting research and research output in the universities. Alfred, you can carry on. And so this is in alignment to the IFLA's 2035 call to action for climate change. And all of these advocate for social justice and looking at maybe ethical use of information and various other research and scholarly communication services that the library provides. At this point, I would like to hand over this presentation to the Deputy Director of Scholarly and Research and Scholarly Communication, Mr. Alfred Nqotole, to take you through to open access and open science and the role that the library plays in open access and open science to forward the SDGs that the DVC's strategic intent is based upon. Thank you. I hand it over to Alfred.
Thank you, Charlene. Chair, should I just continue?
Yes.
Just hold on a second, Mr. Alfred. I think we can share your bio because our attendees have been hearing your name. And just to give a rough overview of your portfolio. So can we have IA share the bio, please? Or I could read it out.
Share it.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So Mr. Alfred, as we've heard throughout the earlier presentation, is the Deputy Director for Research Support and Scholarly Communications at UWC Library. He has the overall responsibility for activities related to copyright, digital humanities, open education resources, online researcher visibility, research data, research impact, open access publishing, special collections, as well as being responsible for our repositories, both the research and the thesis. He ensures that the library is POPIA compliant and focuses on postgraduate and early career researcher training programs, as well as user and reference services. His other interests include academic libraries values and measurement, as well as academic library research support, performance management, and staff development. So over to you, Mr. Alfred. Quite a number of hats you wear.
Thank you very much. Should I share again?
Yes.
Okay, colleagues. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at this year's Research Week. Fortunately or unfortunately, Shalini has covered most of what I'll be referring to. So I'll run very quickly through my slides. I won't speak to all the slides because some of them will be repeating the same information. I wanted to start with open science. As Shalini mentioned, this week we are celebrating the International Open Access Week, which fortunately or with luck, it links with the Research Week this year. And on Friday the 28th, there will be a colloquium from 9 o'clock until 11:30. So I hope all the attendees who are here will also support that. What is open science? Open science refers to research activities that aim to make publicly funded research outputs accessible in digital format to the scientific community, to the business sector, or to the society with no or minimal restrictions at no cost to the user. That was the definition that I got from OECD. That was a 2015 definition, which I think is still, relevant. There are other definitions of open science, but what is important is about the publicly funded research outputs, which all universities they are funded from the public purse. So that research should be openly available with no cost. That's the bigger aim. The 2021 UNESCO recommendation on open access made the following 2 points, which I think they speak to the definition, is to transform the traditional scientific practice to adapt to the changes, challenges, opportunities, and risks of the digital era. We just came out of a pandemic. We're still in a pandemic anyway. We've seen how important freely available information is. Otherwise, people may have struggled to share the research about the vaccines, about anything that was necessary to ensure that we deal with the pandemic. So open science is very important. And the main objectives of open science is to foster collaboration and sharing of research outputs, as I've already indicated. It also enables multilingual research accessibility, availability, and reusability. Reusability is very important. That means the research that is being done there, it can be reproduced for better results. It also opens research processes to a wider society. Again, these 3 points are just emphasizing what was captured by the definition of open science. Again, just to touch on the open access week, it's an international open access week, which is a global event. It's celebrated annually and provides an opportunity to engage with communities advocating for open access. There will be a curriculum which I spoke about on Friday. It will be an opportunity for the academic and research community to continue to learn about the potential benefits of open access, open data, open science, to share what they've learned, with colleagues. We have great speakers that are lined up. Also to help inspire a wider participation in helping to make open access and the contribution to the SDGs as a new norm in scholarship and research. This year's Open Access Week theme is Open for Climate Justice. Again, the Shadeen has mentioned this, as well as the video. It combines openness and sustainable development goals, which is goal number 13, which speaks to climate justice, climate change, anything that has to do with climate. It encourages connection and collaboration among the climate movement and international open community. Sharing knowledge is a human right, and tackling the climate crisis requires rapidly exchanging knowledge across geographic, economic, and disciplinary boundaries. Again, if I will refer you again to our program on Friday, we have people from the law background, we have people from the sciences, natural sciences, we also have speakers from the arts and humanities. So in terms of what we do as UWC, how do we contribute to open science or to open access? In 2013, we signed the Berlin Declaration on Open Access. And in 2015, we had our first open access policy, which was reviewed, I think, in 2021, and now we have a revised open access policy. Also last year, UWC endorsed a research data management policy, which is very important for the library and for the university, so that you can carry on with open science activities. We host 3 repositories. One repository is for our electronic thesis and dissertations for our master's and PhD graduates. That's where we keep those publications. We also have UWC research repository. That's where our research articles, other papers, conference presentations are also housed there. We also have a data repository called Kikapu, which is used we use the platform by Figshare, but we're calling it Kikapu, which is a Swahili word for a basket. Shadeen spoke about the transformational, agreements, which are important for our researchers. The SDG 4, which is listed there, I think you can read for yourself. That SDG is about quality education, and this is what we do as a library to ensure that we support SDG 4. There will be details later on one of the slides on what we do as a library to support the SDG 4. Maybe I should also mention with the repositories that the UWC library is also involved in the National ETDs repository task team. The purpose of that task team is to review the current repository landscape and provide intelligence to build on good practices, address challenges, and incorporate new trends. The objectives, again, they include identifying the current infrastructure, configurations and software, metadata requirements for improved visibility and discoverability, as well as the skills requirement to sustain the repository. So that's the work that is happening nationally, and UWC is very much involved in that. And recently, UWC joined the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association, which is the international association of publishers and universities. So we do throw our weight, around trying to mix with people who have experience, who have been doing these things as UWC. That slide just shows some of the important aspects of of what we do in the library. Open access, as I've mentioned, publication support, we work with research data, research impact, copyright, and other activities. Then this slide, just shows more, more brightly, if I can use that term, in terms of what we do as a library to add value to support research at UWC. Shadin again mentioned in her presentation what we do, but this is how we deliver as an enabler to research and innovation, library services that are conducive and committed to promote research success, collaborate with our Research and Development Office, our Division of Postgraduate Studies. We also work very closely with the faculties. We're currently doing an implementation of OCRIT, which we have been going to the faculty board and speaking with the faculty so that everybody can be online. Access to information, that's knowledge creation, again, this was mentioned by Shalin. Open scholarship and open educational resources, which is linked to it. Publishing and hosting of online journals, the copyrights and intellectual property, that's some of the work that we're doing. I've mentioned the online research visibility and access. Again, OCRIT comes in there. Research data management, training and development. You can get to us, by going to our library website. All the information is there. Apologies, that is that picture is not recent because our website slightly changed now, to promote open access. So if you go to the library page now, it won't be looking like that. Again, this is just reflecting on the SDGs and how library can also engage with the SDGs. Mapped existing activities from business as usual to task to annual strategic and operational goals. That's what we try and do every beginning of the year to make sure our strategic and our operational goals, they are linked to the DVC's research and innovation and the university's goals, which they speak to the SDGs. Build internal capacity and ownership of SDGs by engaging staff at different levels across the library to identify their individual contribution to the goals. We've been running a project with the DVC's office on how the UWC is contributing to the SDGs in terms of publications, and that's a very interesting report that we've come out of that process. We monitor and communicate actions on SDGs through formal and informal reporting to a range of different audiences. But as for now, we're still working within the library and assist with research on SDGs when we are asked to do that. Okay, this is just a note on how the African librarians can contribute towards the attainment of SDGs in Africa. This is how the library can significantly contribute to that by providing a conducive environment for access to relevant and user-friendly information on development issues, establishing a strong line of programs, selecting resources that are pertinent to the development indicators entrenched in the SDG document, hosting periodic discourses where people can deliberate on issues such as community health, education, civil and human rights, environmental issues, climate change, etc., and how to tackle them. Again, on Friday, we will be doing that. Partnering with other agencies in promoting changes required for sustainable development in all spheres in Africa. Establishing some information centers that are rooted in local communities, motivating and building the professional capacity of the library professionals, and also we work with government agencies to ensure that we contribute to attain the SDGs. I think that was my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation, colleagues. Very, very profound video. Thank you for sharing that video. And it is important. Generosity has no expiring date. And I think all sectors need to come together for the call to action for climate change. And Mr. Alfred, just to comment, you know, especially for young up and coming researchers, it becomes very, very important to have access to open access journals and stuff, which the library offers, because it allows us to actually make our mark as researchers. So thank you for that. Colleagues, we have a couple of minutes for questions. So I'd like to open the floor for questions, and just a reminder to the speakers to please keep your video on during the Q&A. And yeah, so I'm going to check the Q&A box to see if we have any questions. And if we don't, or if there's any comments from any of the attendees, we can address those before we move on to the next section. Okay. Okay.
So it looks like everybody is awestruck by our presentation. So they are they're just eating out of our hands and they're ready to partner with us.
Yes,
No
and collaborate instead of compete.
Yes.
Mary Robertson made a very, very profound video and made valid points. And I think it's a lot that the library is doing. And I think it's just a matter of us collaborating for knowledge creation. Okay, so colleagues, just one last, no questions? Okay, I think we can move on. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next section. Thank you. So next up, we have Dr. A Casanueva-Gonzalez extends her apologies because she couldn't make it. But in her stead, nonetheless, we have Aisha Mohammed Ali. Aisha Mohammed Ali is the Technology Transfer Manager at the University of the Western Cape at the Tech Transfer Office that can be found at the Research Hub. Together with a prior role as a tech transfer officer specializing in commercialization, Aisha has spent 8 years assisting our innovative researchers at UWC to transfer UWC's intellectual property assets to industry so that they can be commercialized for the benefit of society. Before joining UWC, Aisha worked at the Technology Innovation Agency, TIA, across the project investment lifecycle stages. She then joined a startup company, Chorus Biotech, as a bioprocessing scientist that actually had a dual role in undertaking research and development in the laboratory, as well as business development activities. Having sufficiently explored the lab setting, Aisha then moved to UWC, where she found her passion for technology transfer. Aisha's qualifications include a master's degree from the University of Pretoria in microbiology and a postgraduate diploma in business administration from the University of Cape Town. Over to you, Aisha.
Okay, thank you very much, Asia. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and just want to minimize this quickly. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share how our UWC researchers contribute to SDG 9 in terms of fostering innovation and how the TTO facilitates this. So universities have been innovating for a very long time, and this slide basically shows some well-known examples of university innovations that have been successfully commercialized. There's the MRI machine, where many universities were involved in its development, but in 1980, the first full-body MRI scanner was developed by the University of Aberdeen. The HPV vaccine, which is commercialized by Merck, was developed by the University of Queensland. And Fexo, you might know Fexo, the compound fexofenadine, was developed by Georgetown University. And the famous Gatorade was developed by the University of Florida in 1965. And yeah, it's commercialized by PepsiCo. And if you look at some more recent innovations, the COVID-19 vaccine innovations that have been more relevant in the past 2 years, the Moderna vaccine was developed by the University of Pennsylvania, and the AstraZeneca vaccine was developed by Oxford University. So for all of these innovations emanating from universities to end up with commercial partners, university technology transfer officers were involved. But what is technology transfer? So if you look at innovation, it can be defined as innovation is the successful implementation of new or improved products, processes, and services derived from new ideas and inventions, resulting in the creation of societal and monetary value. And this is done through technology transfer, where university research outputs are transferred to industry to meet societal needs. But why would you do technology transfer? Let's talk a little bit about the purpose of the university. The purpose of the university is to create knowledge and to disseminate knowledge. We create knowledge through research, and we disseminate it through our teaching, publications and conferences, collaborations, and of course, technology transfer. So, but why would we do technology transfer? This is for the practical application of research in society to create impact, for the potential for additional income. This could be commercialization income as well as research funding, and for increased recognition or reputation. And at the Technology Transfer Office, we assist researchers to do technology transfer. So in the next few slides, I will cover some of the innovations where the TTO has assisted researchers to do technology transfer. Some of the successes where we have already created impact in society include the Exotype technology, which is a DNA sequence analysis platform that was originally developed for HIV drug resistance testing and has now been extended to accommodate other diseases. It has been pivotal in detecting mutations and lineage and clade typing in SARS-CoV-2. And this technology was licensed and is now assigned to the UWC spin-out company, Hyrex Biosciences. Another innovation is the Zenzeleni networks, Zenzeleni community networks. So Zenzeleni is a solar-powered, community-owned Wi-Fi telecommunications network solution that provides affordable communications to remote rural areas. The Zenzeleni not-for-profit company was created to commercialize the solution and assist co-ops to start and manage the service in their own rural communities. Another example is the TB School Learner Workbook, How to Be a Health Activist. This was created to facilitate teaching of life skills to students on how to manage situations where TB and HIV are prominent causes of community or societal issues. This one was licensed to the Department of Education in the Western Cape from 2014 to 2017, and to date has been accessed by more than 75,000 students. So the TTO has been assisting researchers across all faculties in all aspects of technology transfer, from assisting with applications to source funding, to finding product development partners amongst industry and research institutes, help with understanding the regulatory requirements. We assist our legal services with contracting, and also researchers with devising how to best protect the research outputs and transfer them to society. Some more examples of innovations that we have assisted in include the green energy technologies, looking at hydrogen fuel cells and electrolyzers, hydrogen fuel vehicles, and lithium battery packs. The Genesis Health and Wellbeing Scorecard, this was developed to track psychosocial well-being in young learners in schools, and it's available in English, in isiXhosa, and Afrikaans. This technology has completed its pilot phase through a TSC-funded project. Another example is the Black Soldier Fly products, where we've engaged with industry to produce value-added products from Black Soldier Fly farming. And those value-added products are used in agricultural or cosmeceutical applications. Okay, in the biosurfactant project, the researchers have identified a novel gene from a bacteria that has surfactant properties, and they're currently looking at ways to produce this on a large scale for applications in the agrochemical and cosmeceutical space. We're also working on a number of innovations using indigenous plant extracts, with most of them focused in the treatment of various health conditions. And when it comes to indigenous plants or indigenous biological resources, here is where the TTO also assists with by prospecting compliance. And one last innovation I want to mention is the production and harvesting of copepods, which is a feeding source for fish farms and is key for growth of marine fish in the aquaculture industry. So, is your project next? How can we assist you? And yeah, contact us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Aisha. I think with us living in Cape Town with the Southeaster, we can definitely appreciate the fixer invention with those allergies. We'll take some questions. So if there's anyone that has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. I'll monitor them there. Okay. Okay. No questions. Aisha, I have a question. You know, as someone who's gone through the laboratory setting and from a laboratory setting into business development, you know, I think students I have found often struggle to see the bigger picture on why they should actually engage and try and get their product to market or commercialize. Could you comment on that from the perspective of having been in a lab setting and been a student before you joined the Tech Transfer Office?
Sure. I think it's very different being in industry and being at university, and the way you do research at the university compared to industry varies a lot. You know, there's costs involved and there's regulatory requirements that need to be met before your product can hit the market. And it is quite a transition, and that's why the TTO is here to assist with that, because we're quite familiar about what industry requires in certain fields. And if not, we go out and we try and get that information so that when you are transitioning, you know, it makes it easier to take your product further in line with industry requirements.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have a question. Mr. Motloi, your raised hand is noted. So we have a question in the chat from Mr. Motloi from the NRF. What challenges have you experienced in engaging with industry?
Okay, I think a lot of the time we find that our research is very early on, and industry would like to see a little bit more developed before they actually make decisions on whether they would get involved in the research or commit any resources to it. So funding definitely is one of those challenges that we do face, and TIA to some point has addressed that through their seed fund mechanism. Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges. Can't think offhand of any others right now.
Mr. Motloi, would you like to comment? Your hand was raised.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you. Okay. No, thank you very much. Something funny was appearing on my screen. Yeah, I think Aisha, I asked that question specifically because that's part of the work that I do at the NRF, and I must mention that I was referred to as a guest. I don't know if I'm a guest because Aisha is actually my ex-boss. A good 10 years ago when we were still at TIA. Yeah, so I asked this question, Aisha, because that's part of the daily job that I do to drive engagement between industry and academia. But now that you've answered the question, I think my follow-on question would be that, do you think the academia setting or the university environment has done enough to create an enabling environment to make sure that academia responds to the needs of industry? Because industry pretty much most of the time needs solutions that come from academia. So have we done enough within the academic space to ensure that we enable researchers to be responsive to industry needs? Thank you.
So I think also another challenge could be the commercialization support that academics require, or the understanding of industry and market needs is something that is lacking, and to some extent the TTO does fulfill that requirement, where we try to assist with market research reports, identifying the need in the marketplace for your products or for whatever invention or innovation that you're working on. I think having that added support would be very beneficial to our researchers, so that when you are doing your research, it's more tailored to what industry requires, and it's more applied in that sense. Yeah, and that's also quite expensive, because I mean we often, because we are a small unit, we get external consultants to assist us with that, and that can be costly at times. And yeah, expertise, you need the expertise in various fields. So I hope
thank you for that.
That helps.
That has. Thank you for that. I think you make a valid point that, tailoring your studies or tailoring your research so that it's more industry and will be attractive. I think that's something as students and as principal investigators, sometimes we don't think of. So that is something that's very important. Thank you for that. If there are no other questions, I think we can continue. Okay, so next up we have from the Division for Postgraduate Studies. Okay, we have my colleague, Dr. Olushola Rotimi Adeniyi, is one of the academic coordinators in the Division for Postgraduate Studies. In his role, he oversees UWC postgraduate mentorship through the allocation of our writing and statistical coaches. He facilitates training and workshops, as well as coordinates our NRF funding, and oversees the overall research well-being of UWC postgraduate students. Dr. Olushola obtained his PhD from UWC with a specialty in material sciences, polymer composite membranes for green energy, the hydrogen economy, and platinum group metal beneficiation. Quite a mouthful. Over to you, Dr. Adeniyi.
Thank you very much, Asia. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you can hear me clearly, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So let me just, can I share my screen?
The floor is yours. You may go ahead.
All right, thank you. Today I just want to talk about postgraduate students, DPGS being a strategic unit in the division under the DVC Research and Innovation. And what I want to talk about today is what I titled DPGS and its strategic postgraduate research capacity development in the form of curating, training, funding opportunities, and mentorship. We all know that postgraduate students constitute one of the most vital lifeline of the university. And so giving priority to them, capacitating them, improving their skills within the context of research is very important. And we do this bearing in mind, looking at the SDG 4, for instance, which is quality education, and also looking at the overall IOP of UWC and part of some of the things that's so dear to the DVC Research and Innovation, which revolves around recruitment, retention, and completion. And for us to be able to achieve this, one of our approaches or strategies is to make sure that we come up with trainings, workshops around research stages or research phases that will enable the postgraduate students understand what they are into, and also assist them and make them feel at home to understand that they are not alone in this journey. And so for us in the DPGS, we have a whole list of training that we offer around the clock. When I say around the clock, I mean around the whole academic year. And we make sure that we organize this training in such a way that postgraduate students do not have any reason whatsoever to be stranded or to have any form of hiccup in their postgraduate pursuit. So we have a list of them, of course, exclusively targeted at master's and doctoral students, from research proposal to literature review, research methodology, data analysis tools, data collection procedure. We do have retreats. As a matter of fact, we are currently running the thesis completion retreat, which started today. And of course, we expose the postgrad students around governance issue for them to understand what they need to do and how they need to conduct themselves as postgraduate students. We also make sure that we don't just capacitate them around research skills alone, but also exposing them to funding opportunities in the form of organizing workshops and training for them on how to put in their best foot when it comes to application, for instance, the case of NRF application. And of course, we know that internationalization is so dear to UWC, and we recently concluded a 3MT thesis where the doctoral students participated. So by and large, we make sure that the postgraduate students have a sense of belonging, of being part of the university system, because technically speaking, it's very easy for an average postgrad student to feel left alone, isolated, thinking that he's just all by himself. So the DPGS is more like a one-stop shop where they come to us for all of their research need, and we try as much as possible to come up with ideas, concepts that we address some of their research challenges. Okay, so of course, one of the things that comes up so strong that we continue to leverage on and also develop in a more robust way when it comes to curating our training is to potentially collaborate or interact or engage with the faculties or the departments. And I like the fact that Mr. Alfred mentioned something. I think the library, we have enjoyed a very cordial relationship with the library for so many years now. And it's one of the collaboration that is so complementary. It is not competitive in any sense because the students know, for instance, what to do, what purpose the library serves, and how it helps them in their postgraduate journey, and also the kind of support they can get from the DPGS. So we try as much as possible to interact, to engage with the different faculties and libraries in order to meet the needs of their respective postgraduate students. So I will just look at, I will just present some numbers here with respect to some of the things we do. So this is a summary of the attendees of our workshops that we've had this year alone. And when you look at the numbers, it simply says something very profound, that the students see value, they see benefits. They appreciate the fact that what we are giving them is something that will help them make tremendous progress with respect to their research and their postgraduate experience. And so we offer this training in form of general training, which of course was one of the slide that I just previously showed. We also engage with different departments, PGD, like PLAS, Institute for Social Development. We engage faculties like, for instance, Faculty of Education, Faculty of Dentistry, sometimes even the faculties or the departments. They organize orientation for their postgraduate students, where we come in and we showcase what exactly we do and how we can be a partner in progress with respect to their postgraduate journey. So these numbers basically just highlight the importance and how we continue to improve on what we're doing. And of course, part of it is that we make sure that we don't just do these trainings, we kind of engage in a form of evaluation where we ask the students to know what we are doing right and what we need to improve upon or what we are doing wrong. And of course, to ensure that there's a space where these resources can be kept, our training, no thanks to COVID, is being recorded and kept on Canva, where students can access freely and watch at their own time. And when you look at the numbers of students that have visited the recordings that have been kept on Canva, it's so interesting. It's almost, in some instances, like 5 times the number of students that actually attend the workshop. And of course, this emphasizes the fact that when these things happen, for students who couldn't come around or who probably because of some technological challenges, they have a way of visiting this recorded versions and making the most of the information that is being shared there. Okay, let me just, there we go. All right, so so this is just some of the stats with respect to training, just to further collaborate or emphasize on the previous slide. We're looking at the honors, the masters, the doctorates, with respect to the different types of training that we offer. And we have a target. That's basically what this slide is showing. We don't just work, we work in a strategic way. We know the mandate with which we're working. We're working with the mandate of the UCDG. We know what is expected of us, and we consciously work towards this. And when you look at what our target is and how far we've gone, I think, in fairness, I think we are not doing badly, knowing fully well that we still have a couple of workshops that will run for the remainder of the year. So we kind of making tremendous progress in this regard. Okay, so this is just to show you the level of downloads in terms of numbers that are available on Canva. Of course, because the academic year starts for us in March, we see how the number of visits on Canva, which is the central database where all the recordings are kept, has been over the years. And again, just to reemphasize, this recordings and the number of times students go to visit them gives us an idea of how important some of these phases are for the student, and probably why they need it more, and what can be done to improve on the quality of the resources that is being kept there. So in terms of funding opportunities, we have a list of funding opportunities that are available and accessible to postgrad students. I think I must just indicate here that one of the things we try to express to postgrad students during our training is for them to always pay attention to UWC communication and make sure that they don't just by default delete it. So we have the NRF, we have the other Betty Livingston, we have the Heisenberg, we have the SILF. So these funding opportunities, they have specific targets, and we do encourage postgrad students to leverage, to take advantage of this. And I think one of the things that we are trying to work on in the DPGS is to organize periodic workshop that we prepare the students to put in a robust and a positive application in terms of exploring this funding opportunity. So we are looking at, so this slide just shows the NRF application for 2022, and we know for a fact in UWC that NRF is one of the major funding opportunities that students explore. And of course, one of the things that these numbers is showing us is that there is always an opportunity to improve on the applications, of course, not just improve on the number of applications, but improve on the success rate of the application. Of course, we could see that some faculties are probably not there, but not because they are rich, but because what we probably need to do is to engage them further on taking advantage of this application so that the students, the postgrad students in those faculties can benefit from it. All right, so the mentorship is a very interesting model, which I like to talk about a lot, and the reason is because when we look at the mentorship program that is available in the DPGS, it's a question of postgraduate students with excellent academic research skill being able to mentor their peers. And so we have about 15 coaches. We refer to them as both writing and statistical coaches. Their core responsibility is just to make sure that they prepare the students, they assist the students in their research journey in form of following the strict academic skills, rules and regulations. Of course, they are not content specialists. They are not supervisors. Their role is just to make sure that whatever the student is doing is decent enough to be sent to the supervisor. And even when the supervisor gives comments, the mentors or the coaches are there to sit with the student one-on-one and guide the student on how to address some of these comments. And I'll be very honest to say this year alone, just like in previous years, we have about 4 of the coaches that are graduating with their PhD. I think 2 have already graduated with their PhD. So these are all coaches also that they are not lacking behind with respect to their own primary role in terms of why they are in UWC to pursue their postgraduate degree, whereas they are also assisting other postgrad students in either completing or making progress with their postgraduate journey. And so far this year, we have about 516 students that have been assigned to coaches that is being assisted. Out of these, about 377 is their master students. So it's a very robust initiative that gives an average postgrad student a sense of belonging, knowing fully well that he has a peer that he can always go back to. Lastly, I just want to appreciate my colleagues who have in one way or the other contributed to almost all of the things we do in the DPGS. Dr. Rosenda, she's no longer with us, so she's moved, but I still have to duly acknowledge her because she handles some fantastic job. And of course, the chair, which I see she's also, I see Janine also, Peter, and the rest. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Adeniyi, and for the acknowledgement. Very, very interesting. And I mean, it aligns with the Sustainable Development Goal 4 for quality education. So that is our mandate to ensure quality education and to capacitate our postgraduate students for retention and throughput. I will now hand over to the floor. Do we have any questions with regards to the division for postgraduate studies and who we are and what we do? Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Dr. Adeniyi, if there's no comments on your end, I think we can move to the next section.
All right. Thank you very much, Asia, for covering this. Thank you
for your time. Okay, so next up we have Dr. Tabile Sokupa. And Dr. Tabile Sokupa is the Director for Special Projects and Partnerships in the DVC's Office, Research and Innovation. He's responsible for managing and coordinating the strategic research initiative and projects in the DVC's office. His core responsibilities are to ensure the alignment of research and innovation strategies with UWC's vision and strategy, management of communication, liaison with internal and external stakeholders, monitoring and evaluation within the office of the DVC, as well as research and innovation advocacy and governance, amongst others. So another doc that wears many hats. Over to you, Dr. Tabile. Dr. Sokupa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, let me just share my screen here. As we're about to start. I'm not sure whether my colleagues are able to see.
We can see your screen and we can hear you clearly. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. And thank you once again to the organizers for this research week, in particular DPGS, led by Prof. Julie Phillips and the entire team, including IA. The presentation for today is Emerging Research Support, the foundation of a research-led university. And a research-led university within the UWC context is quietly located in very key strategic documentation that I will then be talking about. And then from there on, I will then link them up to the SDGs. Okay. So as already indicated, the functions of the Special Projects Office is to manage and coordinate the strategic research initiative and projects in the office of the DVC, but also aligning the research and innovation strategy with the DVC's, with UWC's vision and strategy, the management and communication and marketing of research and innovation within the office of the DVC, as well as liaising with internal as well as external stakeholders, both local as well as international, the monitoring and evaluation of the DVC unit programs, as well as around leadership and governance. Now, according to the strategic documents, what is a research-led university as we link it up to the SDGs? The UWC mission statement within the IOP states that UWC is a research-led university responsive to the needs of a changing world through excellence in learning, teaching, and research, and the generation and application of new knowledge. In other words, UWC, as it advances to be a research-led, does not operate within silos. It operates within partnerships. And this is what the SDGs advocate for. Another key strategic goal within the IOP is goal number 3, which is on research and innovation. And research and innovation goal number 3 states what it means to be a research-led university. It states that it is to strengthen UWC's position as a research-led university through contribution to the transformation of society through its knowledge production endeavors and be recognized for its generational capabilities and research strength in selected areas. In other words, a research-led university within goal number 3 of the IOP is anchored around transformation and the production of new knowledge that is innovative, that is able to speak to societal needs. That is what a research-led university, according to these very key strategic statements, indicate. However, as you then further drill down within the DVC Research and Innovation Strategy, in her strategy, it indicates that the office will position UWC as a leading research-led university, contributing to the transformation of society. Once again, as you see within the strategy, as well as the IOP goal number 3, transformation and new knowledge are interlinked and intertwined. However, I like how the DVC Research and Innovation motto simplifies this in these key strategic initiatives as we drive the research agenda for 2021 to 2025. The DVC Research and Innovation motto reads as follows. It is making research and innovation count through connecting possibilities. In other words, as we are within our own contribution in our little corners, we should be able to make sure that the research and support we give both to our undergrad as well as to our postgrad, it is a research that makes an impact, it is research that makes, that connects possibilities. And through the opening remarks of Prof. Franz yesterday, she talked about the breaking down of silos. And as you'd see, based on the presentation of our colleagues, they also indicated the different programs that they offer through faculties, but also within the interdepartmentals of the Office of the DVC. And therefore, you see a common thread in the strategic agenda of UWC, which is an institution which is research-led, an institution that is transformational in its agenda and its direction, an institution that is advancing new knowledge, an institution that aims to build partnerships both locally but also within the region. Now, in terms of a research-led university within the prism of special projects, how then do we encapsulate the strategic agenda that I've just presented? And I will just touch base on 4 key areas that the office contributes towards a research-led university that is anchored towards the SDGs. Firstly, it's around sustainable development research. And what do I mean by sustainable development research? The office believes that a research-led university should be anchored within the global indicator framework of sustainable development goals. That's what I then mean by having a sustainable developmental research, research that makes an impact as per the strategic goals that I had presented previously. And what then is our contribution as the Office of the Special Projects? Our contribution is primarily on SDG 4, which is on quality education. And this is what our colleagues have also indicated about SDG 4, which is quality education. Gender equality. Gender equality is gender equality as well as demographic transformation is one of the key pillars in us having a transformed educational system. And I will just also be touching base what I mean going forward, because we need to make sure that as we support future researchers, emerging researchers, that our emerging researchers are transformed in terms of demographics, our emerging researchers are transformed in terms of gender, our support that we give, make sure that we target and support those who are the most in need in terms of financial support. The last leg of a sustainable development is on SDG 17, which is on partnerships. Now, partnerships, colleagues, are not only external, but partnerships are inter and multidisciplinary approach. And in our support for research funding, one of the key areas is the type of partnerships that we support. Partnerships that would include student support, partnerships that would include departmental and interdepartmental research collaboration, partnerships that would include regional partners, whether locally or within the SADC region. But also not to forget the South-to-South partnerships, as well as our long-term partners that we have built over the years. And that is the kind of partnership that we support as the office. And I think once again, it was as if the DVC had already read my mind when she talked about the teaching and learning support. Teaching and learning is not only on undergraduate, but teaching and learning is a pipeline from your undergrad level right up until your postdoctoral level. And what do I mean in terms of support of teaching and learning? As the office, we support enhancing postdoctoral, graduate, and postdoctoral, postgrad, as well as postdoctoral support, as well as early career researcher experience. In other words, we should be able to make sure that within our teaching and learning support, we create a postgraduate experience, as DPGS, for an example, is doing, that is all-encompassing, that is holistic, that allows emerging researchers to feel that they're not walking the journey alone, but they do have the tools that will advance their ultimate progression towards greater heights. Special projects, once again, around teaching and learning, believes and supports the creation of enabling research and innovation environment that supports both academics, students, and support staff to contribute towards knowledge production. In many a times, when we talk about teaching and learning support, we mostly talk about academics as well as students, leaving behind our support staff who could contribute meaningfully in terms of knowledge production. And therefore, one of the support that we give are to make sure that, for an example, staff support programs where staff would then be able to go to other universities in terms of staff support exchange to learn in terms of good practice around university research management and around university administration in general. Community engagement. A university is not a university in an island. We believe as special projects that our research should be able to be anchored within community engagement. And what do we mean by community engagement? UWC being an anchor and a research-led university, the office supports academics, students, and support staff to play an integral role in addressing societal challenges. Now, these societal challenges will also be linked and found within the DVC research and innovation strategy. And this is how we then contribute towards that strategy. The last one is on collaboration and partnerships. The office supports research collaboration and partnerships that promotes local as well as global impact. And without partnerships, you then are not contributing in a holistic manner, but you become an insular or an inward-looking individual or a researcher. And for us, we believe that partnerships will then break down the silo mentality that some of the institutions have been synonymous with. And these collaboration and partnerships are what we support going forward. Right. Now, within the SDG, how then do we link the strategic goals that I've talked about, which in terms of the mission, goal number 3, the strategy? How then does special project contribute? As already indicated in my previous slide, if you do not understand the sustainable development goal within the global indicator, because in each of those SDGs, there are sub-themes that speak to the globe, that speak to the broader SDG, in particular, quality education. The indicator there indicates that SDG aim to ensure an inclusive and equitable education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Those are what the indicators are really saying. And therefore, if we do not understand the contextual understanding in the background around those SDGs, then you might just take quality education as just a goal that does not have substance. And for you to be able to get substance in those goals, you then need to go to the global indicator framework to have a better understanding on what they mean. And the sub-indicator in terms of goal number 4 that we are contributing passionately in is 4.3, which indicates that by 2030, we should ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, as well as tertiary education, including university. Once again, quality education talks about issues of equal access, and they talk about issues around transformation. And this is what is also indicated within our strategy. This is what is indicated within our IOP. This is what a research-led university as special project believe should be. And as we go to goal number 5, which talks about achieving gender equality and empower for all women and girls. We primarily support goal number 5.5, which talks about ensuring women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. In this manner is that as we support our researchers, as we support our academics, as we support our support staff, we make sure that issues of transformation are the key pillars in addressing a transformed South African society that will ultimately produce future leaders that are representation of the diversity and the kaleidoscope that South Africa is known for. And the last one, in terms of the SDG and how we believe it links towards our contribution, is on partnerships, which is goal number 17. Now, goal number 17, if you look at and analyze it within the indicator framework, states that strengthening the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development goal. We have, for example, up and coming programs around issues of SASOF. Those are partnerships that speak to around issues of partnership that aim to address SDGs towards collaborative research. We're also going to be having, for example, Synod that will be taking place in University of Limpopo. Those are partnerships that talk about issues of collaboration and partnerships as we address issues of SDGs as well as sustainable development research, as already indicated. But for us, what does it mean? What does it resonate with special project? We believe if we look in terms of 17.9 of SDG 17, it states that it aims to enhance international support for implementing effective and targeted capacity building in developing countries to support national plans to implement all the Sustainable Development Goals, including through North-South, South-South, and triangular collaboration. Once again, having local as well as international partnerships that will have global impact. And that is the partnership that we as Special Project aim and believe that these SDG play, and this is what we contribute towards. Now, I have given out the strategic agenda of the institution and what the office believe is of importance and how it contributes towards SDG and how do these SDG are linked to the indicators and how we contribute towards. Now, in terms of the importance of emerging researcher support, why it is important. Firstly, the office believes that emerging researcher support is the future foundation of a research-led university. Why is that the case? Government has identified that South African university, in particular, established researchers are close to retirement and are mostly white males. And now, as we're having an aging population of our research, established researchers, it therefore becomes important that we bring and build the next layer of researchers who would contribute meaningfully, but also a research layer that would be transformational in terms of how they are, but in terms of also representation of these future researchers. The third one is that in addressing this challenge, the office believes in supporting a pipeline of future established researchers. Supporting of emerging researchers therefore becomes critical. In other words, if we envisage a future of established researcher, the future can only start by supporting from the grassroots up. And in that way, we can be sure of a future that we all can be proud of as an institution. The second, the following issue is, as the office, we believe the support of emerging researcher also addresses the issues of demographic and gender transformation. This lays the right foundation for a transformed university research-led landscape. And in that way, we believe that a university-led, research-led landscape is one that is transformational, is one that is demographically transformed, but is also one that is transformed in terms of its research outputs and new ideas. We also believe that a holistic support of emerging researcher support would yield innovative solutions that address local and global challenges, as well as to contribute towards the SDG agenda. A holistic support should include, amongst others, PhD completion, research project support, PhD completion support, and network and conference attendance. In that way, we then are having a transformed and a holistic support towards an academic or towards an individual who is intending to complete their studies. The last
Doctor?
one.
Oh,
Yes.
the last one. Just
Yes.
time-wise, I just want to be mindful of the time. Thank you.
The last one is a collaborative research that is multi and interdisciplinary in the approach. And as we then conclude, I'd like to then bring to you in terms of some of the success stories that we have had in terms of some of our emerging researcher programs. The first one that I'd like to raise is that developing the scholar program. Since 2018, we've supported over 80 PhD students who have participated in this program. 10 have already graduated. 68 participants have been Black female academics, and 88 publications have come out through this program. Once again, this is the contribution that we are contributing towards the SDGs. The second last one is around ADAPT. ADAPT, for example, is a partnerships between CPUT, Rhodes University, Forte, as well as TUT. This is a local partnerships that we are having, and we are having that partnership also at an international level with Missouri. Out of this program, 3 have already graduated, and 80% of the participants are Black female, colored, African, as well as Indian. Out of this also, we have had 21 publications. These are the impact that we believe if we support our emerging researcher, we will produce a transformed, future academics. And then the last one is on the USDP, which is the Staff Doctoral Program in Community Development. In this one too, it's a partnership between UWC as well as University of Pretoria. And in this one, we've supported 10, 3 have graduated, 70% Black female academics, and 16 publication articles have come out of this. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sokupa, for a very thorough presentation. Very, very important. We do have a question. So if I can ask you to please make sure that your camera stays on. One of the questions we have is from Dr. Mfandeni is, how will the Office of Special Projects ensure access to postgraduates? Sorry, Doctor, before you continue, please may you kindly stop sharing your screen so that we can see you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. You may continue.
Okay. For me, as we support our postgraduate programs, one important thing that the DVC indicated yesterday is to create a pipeline of future researchers. The first pipeline is identifying your future postgraduate programs that would make sure that we support and encourage a future PhD program. But also we do have within the DPGS program, the postgraduate support program that is there. And this postgraduate program support that's there aims to make sure that we have a community of practice of postgraduate PhD as well as master's candidate. And as we then not only then do that, we then make sure that we give our postgraduate candidates not only in terms of capacity development skills, but in terms of funding support. And in that way, we are then going to make sure that we have what I did talk about, which is a holistic approach in terms of our postgraduate support. Because if we do not do that and look at postgraduate in terms of isolation, then we will then be missing the mark. And therefore, it's very then important that we have a pipeline of postgraduate support that will encapsulate future postgraduate support, committee of practice, financial support, but also in terms of holistic support, in terms of network, in terms of conference support, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Sorry, my mic was on mute. Thank you for that, Dr. Sokupa. We have 2 more questions. I will give a minute or 2 for each question. So the first question is, what does transformation look like in a university like UWC, which is classified as a HDI, so a historically disadvantaged institution? Surely questions of race diversity differ from your UCTs. How is UWC tackling those complexities? So the first part is, what does transformation look like, and how are we actually as UWC tackling the complex situation?
All right. I think transformation, as defined really by government, is an institution that represents the demographics of its country. Transformation is also about capacity development and capacity support of future leaders. That is transformational. But also it's about the gender support. And as we do know, in terms of based on the numbers, many of our established researchers are still male dominated. And how then do we make sure that as we go into the future, we have got a transformed research landscape that is in terms of demographics, but also in terms of gender, so that we could have a kaleidoscope, as already indicated, of what South Africa is better known for. And in that way, we will make sure that we continue in the trajectory that UWC over the years has advocated for, which is about total transformation in a holistic manner. So that is what I would say transformation for me is.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Sokupa. One last question is, how is your office assisting with PhD completion and networking beyond the select few who are involved in the programs that you mentioned in your presentation?
Okay. So every year we have got calls that go out, and these calls go out to the UWC communication, but also they are also sent to the faculties for circulation. And at the end of November, for an example, we will then be opening up another call that is for 2023, that aims then to continue in terms of the support that I have had talked about, that special projects focuses on. So the calls are on an annualized basis, and the calls are publicly available, and anyone who is a UWC staff, academic, student can apply for those targeted calls. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very thorough talk. In the interest of time, if there are any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we will address them. And any of the panelists involved will contact you directly as one of the attendees to address your question. Next up, we have from the NRF, Mr. Motloi. Are you there? Okay, so today we have Mr. Christopher Kwena Motloi. Awesome, thank you. Just checking. Mr. Christopher Kwena Motloi from the NRF. So he is the Director of Industry Partnerships and Strategic Engagement at the NRF South Africa, with more than 10 years experience in the national systems of innovation. He's an expert in intellectual property management, business development and commercialization, project initiation and management. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Biotechnology from the University of Western Cape, a proud alumni, and a postgraduate diploma in business management and a master's in business administration from the Regent Business School. Mr. Motloi held various senior management and leadership roles, including being an open innovation specialist at the Innovation Hub Management Company, responsible for open innovation exchange portfolios aimed at connecting Africa's leading researchers and entrepreneurs with new opportunities to commercialize their innovations. He's also a member of the NRF SASTA modeling campaign, and other previous positions include the tier to the Technology Transfer and Commercialization Manager at Mine Health and Safety Council, as well as various positions at the Technology Innovation Agency. Thank you so much, Mr. Motloi. We are honored to have you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't need to put my camera on, right?
For if you have load shedding for bandwidth, I think it's okay to have your camera off
Okay.
to avoid technical glitches. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. There we go. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Melody. I think, I'm, like I said earlier, I'm feeling at home already. And even more interesting was that I had my previous boss when I was still working at the Technology Innovation Agency 10 years ago in Cape Town. So colleagues, I'll be giving you a brief presentation about what the NRF does, especially the unit that I work for, which is Strategic Planning and Partnerships. And I'm glad that quite a few of the colleagues that presented before actually touched on the aspects that my presentation is going to be focusing on. So I will be ready to take questions, but I must mention that post this engagement, whoever wants to have further engagements with me, I'm more than happy to do so. So Maxime and Melody will readily share my contact details with anyone that might want to engage with me after this meeting. So as introduced, I'm Kwena Motloi from the NRF, Director for Industry and Strategic Engagements. So I think what is most important to note, colleagues, is that the NRF primarily operates within the space and R&D system, or the National System of Innovation. The most important thing to highlight is that we play a dual role in this aspect: a funder, which is an organization that funds research, and then again, a research entity in its own right, in the sense that we conduct research. I will touch a bit on that with regards to our research facilities in one of my slides. So our mandate is to support, promote research advancement and human capacity development through the provision of funding and the necessary infrastructure, to develop, support, provide, and maintain national research performing infrastructure and facilities, and to support, promote public awareness, engagement through science, and obviously to promote the development and maintenance of the national science system, which is part of the work that I do on a daily basis. Now, the mandate of the NRF is actually expressed through four main anchor points, which is advancing knowledge, that is through the support that we offer for researchers, and the provision of research infrastructure and platforms. Secondly, is through the transformation of lives, that is mainly through postgraduate support through our programs, inspiring the nation through engagement, awareness, and communication, and strengthening the national system of innovation through fostering strategic partnerships that will generate the impact that we want to be generated within the system. Focusing mainly now on my unit, it's called Strategic Planning and Partnerships. Our main purpose is to provide direction that guides and positions the NRF to play a critical role in promoting collaboration, networking between industry and academia in the system. So that is simply at a
Mr. Malone, are you there?
he had mentioned technical difficulties. I think we can pause for a minute or two to allow him time.
Hello, Maxime.
Hi there, Mr. Motloi, we lost you there for a second.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. In which slide did I get lost? You guys lose me?
Okay, so if you slideshow, scroll down. Okay, the next slide. I think this is, yeah.
Okay. So when we look at a closer look at what we do, technically we play a very catalytic role in facilitating partnerships between both industry and academia. So by definition, under academia, we have your universities, research councils, and national research performing facilities. Industry, we are referring to the private sector, state-owned entities, and then small and micro enterprises. My role primarily is to ensure that I drive engagement, which is, I must say, colleagues, quite a complex thing to do, because you have a number of aspects to consider as you drive engagement. One of them being that is the message that you're going to project through to the prospective audience in sync with what the institution wants to achieve. Again, our approach is mainly to support, promote, and advance research, and then mainly at the main to drive engagement between industry and academia. So this one is actually an emphasis on the previous slide that I just had. In the interest of time, colleagues, I'm going to jump through this one. Now, the one question that we always get asked as we try to drive engagement is who's our main target as the NRF? We partner with government departments. We have signed a few agreements with local and international actually government departments. Science granting councils, I'll touch a bit on that in my later slides, the private sector and state-owned entities, and generally academic institutions through the programs that we offer as the NRF. Our human capacity development pipeline, I think of interest is that you will appreciate that the NRF actually supports researchers across all fields. That's point number one. The only thing that we don't find is clinical trials, because that's the mandate of the Medical Research Council. I will touch a bit. I think there's a slide after this that talks to the spread of what we have funded as the NRF. But in that same vein, we also focus on early stage researchers, next generation researchers, emerging researchers, those that are established. And yes, as my previous colleague just highlighted, there's also an issue that we've identified of this aging cohort of researchers that carry the most critical mass, and we're still trying to find ways of ensuring that those skills are passed on to those that are emerging, so that we don't lose the skill sets that has been invested in. And more than anything, we do have our strategic engagements, investments. Some of you would know that we have our centers of excellence, our research chairs initiatives that I'll also touch on later. So this is basically what the numbers are telling us. I spoke about the research chairs. We funded more than 230 in all sorts of fields, ranging from green energy. The agreement that we just got into now with Sasol actually talks about the hydrogen energy and energy system modeling, which is a partnership that we had to wrap up with Sasol over the past few months. I don't know if colleagues are aware that a call has been open. I think by now it's closed, wherein we are looking for research chairs in those two fields. And then there's another one that funds postdocs in different fields that I'll also touch on at a later slide. So this is a spread of our investments that we've made in terms of funding research. You will agree with me, as I said earlier on, that we are funding across all sectors, except or not so much to that extent natural, anything that has to do with clinical trials, because that's more into the mandate of the Medical Research Council. Now, we have, as mentioned earlier, partnered with very, very high profile industry partners, one of them being Sasol. you will realize that I don't know if you've been following our publications on LinkedIn or the NRF website. We've actually signed a long-term contract with the Sasol Foundation for Scholarship Programs that we concluded, I think, in the previous financial year. As mentioned, this one is most recent because I know for a fact, because I was part of the team that was working on the partnership with regards to opening a call for challenges for research chairs in the field of hydrogen energy and power system modeling. This one was mainly signed or concluded for the intention of ensuring that we develop research capacity that will enable us to manage and jump into the just transition of energy and ensure that we do things conducting research that is sustainable. This one also talks to a partnership that we signed in the last financial year, mainly focusing on, research opportunities, placement of researchers for internship programs, and ensuring that we enhance capacity in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. The most recent one, as I mentioned, support of postdocs in the field of green energy, energy storage, waste utilization, catalytics, and the likes. Melud, I don't know what's happening now. My screen is starting to look a bit funny. So
it still looks good, Doctor.
Can you see?
Yes, we can. It still looks good our end.
Okay. So I've spoken about Research Chairs, which is mainly a program that is dedicated to ensuring that we maintain research excellence. Those that know about the program would agree with me when I say it's divided into two types or categories, type Tier 1 and Tier 2. There is a whole framework that has been put together in terms of what determines if a researcher falls under Tier 1 category and what determines if a researcher falls under Tier 2. But of importance, colleagues, is to mention that there are different types of research chairs. There are those under the category of the DSI and no longer DST research chair, which are fully funded by the NRF and the DSI with the primary focus on advancement of human capacity development. And there are those research chairs that are funded by DSI with a primary focus or in partnership with an industry partner. And there are those that are actually carried out through a call for proposal with partnership with the private sector, a government entity, or a science research performing entity or university. And there are those that we do with our bilaterals or trilaterals, wherein we are actually partnering with one or two countries with an international focus on a critical international research topic, maybe, globalization, it may be, global warming. It depends on the focus of the call. And lastly, we do have the one that we call the OR Tambo research chair. The other partnership that we got into, which is I actually took great interest in this one, it's with the Mandela Institute for Developmental Studies. It's a postgraduate type of a partnership. It's an exchange type of a partnership wherein scholarships will be provided between different African universities. It's more of a mobility program where there will be student exchange happening between countries. We also did a very strategic partnership with MITEX, which is a Canadian research institution. This one mainly deals with placements and internships between industry and academic institutions between Africa, South Africa, and Canada. Another very high profile and strategic initiative that we have is the Science Granting Council initiative, which is working with 16 science granting councils in the African region to support and maintain research and ensure that tech transfer of research happens between Africa and across borders and improve trade opportunities between African countries. For now, we are mainly focusing on 16 countries, Zambia, Namibia, Botswana, but obviously the intention is to expand with the availability of resources. And I can tell you now that there's a program that we are currently developing to ensure that we capacitate the granting councils and working with African-based and local tech transfer offices to ensure that there is uptake of research output in the market between South Africa and other African countries. Again, we've leveraged a lot from the partnerships that we've gotten into. I'm not going to mention each and every one of them, but the Science Granting Councils I just touched on, the OR Tambo chairs, we have bilateral with international agencies. A few of them are the Belmont Forum, the Global Research Council, and the International Science Council and CERN. I did mention that NRF is not only a funding entity, but a research performing entity in its own right, in the sense that we have research performing facilities spread across the country. We have Sarah, we have Saib. Obviously, these facilities focus on different aspects of research. Some of them actually focus more on radio astrology. Some of them are based on ocean research, and some of them are based on astronomy observation, which is science. The focus that we have as the NRF, primarily my portfolio, because those that have taken the liberty to go through the white paper that has been publicized will agree with me that there is a greater need for co-creation of programs and identification of opportunities that will drive co-creation of knowledge within the system. We need to identify synergies amongst research performing entities and universities and leverage synergies for increased impact. We need to facilitate industry and academia partnerships, not only for the NRF, but for the system as well. So there is nothing that stops any colleague from UWC from calling the NRF to say we need assistance in XYZ. We are preparing for an engagement with a prospective industry partner. So we are not looking for partnerships only for the NRF, but only for the system. We need also to get into partnerships that will co-fund collaborative programs for research and innovation, increase partnership with international players as well. This is very critical, I think, if we're to increase the investment that we want to see in local R&D and to support development of the STEM education sector. Situation analysis, I think it's quite critical to note, colleagues, that we will be making a very serious mistake and a big mistake if we look at research in isolation. A lot of us are sitting in what the bracket or the column that is titled local knowledge. In this landscape, that's where knowledge is generated, that's where IP, that's where research happens. But we need to look at this whole thing as a system, because that's the only way we will be able to create a situation wherein academia addresses industry challenges. And that can only be done through partnerships. So if we fail to realize the importance of partnership, we will definitely not realize the value that we could be adding with our research output, developing of research output into technology-based solutions that will address industry challenges and ensure that they are uptaken by the market for commercialization and licensing of university IP. What we've seen is that there is a great price to pay if we don't ensure that we don't collaborate and work in silos. One of them is that it compromises our chances of realizing the full potential of the national system of innovation, an aspect that is greatly captured in the white paper that has been published. It creates an innovation chasm. You will see in the landscape picture that I have there on the left-hand side of the screen that we need to find ways, and that's actually the question that I was asking Aisha earlier on, that we cannot afford to have a situation where such important research output is not seamlessly graduated for tech development and commercialization to address societal and industry challenges. It leads to poor investment because we invest in so much research and yet we don't push forward the research output that comes from universities to make sure that innovations are developed, and therefore it only ends up in publications. It minimizes job creation. We do know that jobs are not being created at an acceptable rate in South Africa, and therefore there is spin-offs Aisha can attest to this as she was presenting some of the innovations that come from universities. There is potential for spin-offs to be formed from the research that gets conducted in university, but we have not developed a system or creating an enabling environment to make sure that that happens. It compromises the country's competitiveness and lessens commercialization of research output. I think, colleagues, that concludes my presentation, and I am ready to take questions. I do hope that my presentation was comprehensive enough to cover the aspects of today's sitting. Thank you very much, Melo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Motloi, a very interesting presentation. I think now we can open the floor for questions. Are there any questions? I think you can stop sharing your screen, Mr. Motloi, so that we can open the floor for questions. Thank you very much. Colleagues, do we have any questions? Okay. I think I do have one. It's a very interesting point and a very valid point about collaboration for innovation that you mentioned. But one of the things that I noticed towards the end of your presentation, Mr. Motloi, you spoke about institutions or research institutions publishing, and sometimes that diminishes the ability or the potential to commercialize an innovative idea. And as some attendees that might be doing their doctoral studies or have done their doctoral studies, for example, they're going to attest that one of the things that's often said to postgraduate students is that publish or perish. So where do we find the balance between I need to publish to make my mark as an up-and-coming researcher, but I also would like to commercialize this innovative idea in order, as you mentioned, to collaborate, to create jobs and, for sustainable development?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there's a critical function and a very critical office within the university setting called the Technology Transfer Office. Aisha, I just wish Aisha was here, because IP is actually a very tricky issue, and anyone that has worked in the space of tech transfer offices will tell you that. What we are actually saying is that there's no discouragement that is being perpetuated towards publication, because ultimately a researcher has to publish, right? But obviously, if it's a research output that has commercial potential, there is legal considerations to be done. At what point do you publish? Because according to certain publications, that once you publish, you give out what we call the prior art, meaning that you've made it public knowledge, so it compromises your chances of being able to patent your. So that's the kind of information that ideally should be getting from a technology transfer office. And once again, if maybe that's a challenge, it's something that we can easily help with. Fortunately, I'm less than a kilometer from the NIPMO office. So if you need any linkages to NIPMO, I'm more than happy to do that. But I think that's info that you can easily get from Aisha. What we are saying is that let's look beyond publishing. Let us actually understand that pretty much almost every PhD is a discovery. There's a lot of IP that is being generated by universities, from universities, but to what extent have we went and wanted to exploit the commercial potential of that IP? Something that is actually not happening to a huge extent in South Africa.
Thank you very much. It was very thorough. That helps clarify things. Do we have any other questions from any of the attendees?
Asia, I'm back actually. So
awesome. Thank you. Sure.
Okay. So yes. There we go. Video. Yeah, definitely the TTO can assist when you have that challenge you're facing between publishing and patenting or protecting your research. And we definitely advise researchers to contact us. And what we do is we would assess your technology and see if it can be protected. And we advise that you protect it first via patenting or other means, and then you publish. Also, you can publish different aspects of your research. You don't have to disclose the very innovative detail that would be regarded as your prior art when you're patenting. So you don't destroy your novelty in your very own publication. Yeah, so my take-home message is come and chat to us. Let us have a look at what you're planning on publishing, and we can advise if you should maybe just withhold some information here and there, or wait a little bit until we file our patent and then you publish. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was very helpful. Thank you once again, Mr. Motloi, for joining us. We're honored to have you in today's session. And I'd like to extend thanks to all the panelists today for their presentations and for attending, and to the attendees for taking the time to attend our session. I think we can just highlight, if there are no questions, we do have Research Week running for the whole week. So tomorrow we have our faculties that are going to continue presenting. So we have first up in the morning session, we have the Faculty of Community Health Sciences, and then in the afternoon, and then we have the Faculty of Education, and in the afternoon session on day 4, we have the Faculty of Economic Management Sciences, and in the morning, the Faculty of Dentistry. So feel free to follow the links that are available on all the UWC Research and Innovation social media pages to register for any of those sessions. And if the panelists have no comments, and there are no comments from the attendees, I just want to again extend thanks to the Institutional Advancement for making such a smooth session today. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much from my side as well.
And also, Mr. Motloi, I see Melody has shared your details. So if there are any attendees that would like to touch base on ideas and how to look at things, I'm sure they will contact you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
I just wanted to add, sorry to just jump in that.
Sure.
I will be in Cape Town. Hopefully I'll meet my previous boss. It's been years since I've seen Aisha. So I'm in Cape Town next week, Tuesday, and I'm in Cape Town again for the Science Forum. So colleagues, I will be physically available for those that want to have a chat with me regarding how do we drive partnerships within the university space. I'm more than happy to do that. But more than anything, my contact details are shared. The more I engage with universities, is the more that I'll be able to prove to my seniors that I'm doing my job. So the NRF is very open to any type of engagements with university for whatever reason, not only for presentations. So in that regard, thank you very much for the invitation, and we do look forward to engaging with you further from this engagement.
Thank you so much once again, Mr. Motloi. And I think thank you for everyone, and I think we can end today's session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you, Asia, for your job well done.